Are you kind of like going the way of WWE in the late 2000s? Is Shane Helms going from TV-14 to TV-PG?
I don't think I can be PG. Don't, my brain doesn't work like that. And it's funny because people always say, you know, with the Hurricane was a superhero. He was a PG character. And I guess I had to remind them, like, my tag team partner was named Shit.
It was.
One of my best-selling T-shirts had Biatch right across the back. Like, the concept might seem PG, but I'm not certain I necessarily was, especially when I was out there with Stacy Keibler, and she's bending over the ropes and her ass is banging me in the face every night. There was nothing PG about that.
One must have been some fun times. I mean, and actually, when they started going the PG route, I believe that's when you started doing like the pop-up gimmick, where you pop up on SmackDown, and
yeah,
you had a lot of stuff. You must have had a lot of stuff cut off from what originally aired.
Oh, without a doubt, the best stuff never made the air. Without a doubt, that was Vince's idea to do that pop-up thing, and he was a big fan of my sense of humor. You know, he knows I'm a smart ass, and I could be a nasty smart aleck if I have to be. And he told me to go after everybody. That was words from his mouth, to go after everybody. Nobody's you don't have to worry about insulting anybody or whatever. You go after everybody. I did, but a lot of them didn't make the air for whatever reason.
How did that work? Did they tape, like, did they have you watch SmackDown and then they just taped you doing these things, or did they have certain segments where they're like, all right, we're going to have you pop up here and here?
Yeah, it was kind of a working process. At first, I was in the back, and I would sit there, and I was in that little setup.
Right.
And I would watch it, and I said, okay, I got one. And boom, and that's what it was. Like, sometimes they would try to give me ideas, but like I never really used their ideas. I just kind of did mine. But then, like, toward the last couple of weeks, I would just sit there and I would watch it, and I would just do them, write them down, and then I would go and record them all in bulk at the end, and they would go put them in when they could. But they only were doing like 1 and 2, and like I said, the best ones never made the air. You know, that was sad because it was some funny stuff. Like, the room would be cracking up. Right. And here's why. And I think it came off okay, and I'm going to say just okay. It didn't come off great because you couldn't hear the laughter. It's like if you go see a stand-up comedian and nobody's in their room, it's not going to be as funny because you can't hear other people laughing, you know? And, like, so the room would be cracking up. You see people over there holding their mouth, but you can't hear it on TV. You just hear me throw out this one-liner, and it's kind of dry and with no reaction. But if you had the reaction, you know, that's why they put, like, a studio audience on some of these sitcoms, because you hear the laughter, and that just makes it better.
Right.
But we didn't have that. And like I said, it's a shame because the people filming the room would be over there holding their mouth, you know, laughing. And so, but it is what it is.
And I have one quick question. You know, people that are fans of, like, comic books and superheroes and stuff, they get delved into the world of these superheroes and all these stories and all these things. And in your tenure as a Hurricane, I believe, you know, you had your sidekicks and stuff. Do you remember a guy named Brian Cage?
I sure do. Yeah, I just wrestled Brian Cage a couple months ago. He was on TNA the other night too, right?
Yeah, and I was reading up on him, and apparently he was going to debut as a character called Nightclaw, and he was supposed, I guess, feud with you on ECW. I don't know how true that is, or if you knew anything about that.
It's the first time hearing of it.
And were there any other situations like that where they were going to bring in a character, or, you know, something where you were going to work with someone and it just never fell through?
It would be mentioned every now and then, but it's one of those things where if you bring in another superhero or a super person, you're watering down my character. You know, you don't need 2 Undertakers. You don't need 2 Stone Colds, 2 Kanes, because it waters it down. So even when I had a sidekick, you know, and this was something I went through with Molly and Rosie. Like, they would go out there and they would do my pose, and I'm like, well, you can't do my pose because now I got to do my pose. And I think the closest we came was with the Burchill thing, with Paul Burchill when he came back as the Ripper.
Right.
But it would be mentioned, like, every time a new writer would come in, or a new creative person that hadn't been there that long, that was always their first generic ideas. What do you think about a supervillain? Like, of course I thought about a supervillain. I've been a superhero for 10 years, you know. But it's like, once they did that, where would they go from there? Like, is this guy going to come in and basically have my gimmick? Because I came in as the heel, so I kind of came in as a supervillain. So are they basically just going to do my gimmick, you know? What do you want me to do after that?
Right, and one thing I noticed too, you were just saying it before. You said, "What's the point of bringing in another superhero? You should have only one." And one thing I think that is a strength of Impact Wrestling a little bit is that they kind of have a balance. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have too many guys that are comedy guys. You have like Robbie E and Jesse, and that's it as far as comedy. Whereas Raw, God bless them, but I tune in and it's almost like every freaking segment outside of like the main segment, like with Punk or John Cena, involves some really bad comedy. Do you think wrestling in general, and particularly WWE, needs more of like a balance as opposed to trying to be something it's not?
Oh, without a doubt. The variety of what WWE can be was what made it hot when it was, super hot. I mean, it should be a reflection of culture, I know when they were hot, you just had somebody. You had somebody for everybody. Whether it was the Brood, was the goth people, or whether it was Matt and Jeff kind of had the club, the Hot Topic crowd, whatever. Stone Cold, of course, was the Rabbo. There's just something for everybody. And some of the characters really today kind of blend in, like you were saying. They're kind of all the same. The shticks are the same, that sort of thing. You got to find a way to stand out and be different.